Hello, everyone. Happy Sunday to you. Listen, I am so excited to have on today Dr. Jean and Barbara Donaldson. I'm just going to bring them on because our time is going to go by rather quickly. Dr. and Sister Donaldson, it is so good to have you all on. Listen, I'm going to tell a little bit about both of you all, welcome you all to the broadcast. I want to welcome those of you who are coming on this Sunday morning. By all means, if you're watching us and you're in the comments, just in the comments, you can let us know who you are, where you're watching from. You can also use the comment box to ask questions of Dr. Jean and Brenda Donaldson. But let me just tell you a little bit about, we'll start with the star of the family right now. Sister Donaldson, or Barbara, is recently retired educator. She's been a teacher, principal, and school administrator. She's worked both in church school and in public school. She's a grant writer who still serves as a consultant to her former school district. She's an avid reader, loves to paint, and is a grandmother of 6. And of course, we know Dr. Donaldson. He's the ministerial director of the Allegheny East Conference. He's pastored all over the place. Dr. Jean, Brenda, if you would just greet the people and say something to them and welcome them as we get all up into your life and your relationship.
Amen. Amen. You want to go first?
Go ahead.
Well, I want to say thank you for this opportunity, but I'm going to make one correction from the start, or I won't be able to live it down. That's, Barbara, I want to say this is a great. Thank you so much, us, man. And I appreciate things that you're trying to do for those who are in relationships or trying to improve their relationships, trying to navigate this thing called marriage and
well, I want to thank you again, Dr. Doe. And again, it's Barbara, not Brenda. And you pretty much covered everything. I'm a retired administrator. I'm enjoying retirement. I'm enjoying spending time with my grandbabies. I'm an avid traveler. Donaldson and I have been much everywhere, and we love traveling. We can't wait until post-COVID days are behind us and we can resume traveling. And we look forward to just sharing our experiences on this network. We have been married almost 45 years. It's been a wonderful journey. We thank God for it. And we recognize that there are many struggling couples today who have not found what we have found. And so we are happy to share with bits that we can that can help somebody's marriage hopefully hang on just a little longer.
You know what? I have to apologize to you all because I was lazy. I had on Dr. Peela and his wife, and her name is Brenda. And when I changed the lower thirds, I was lazy and didn't change the Brenda. I'm going to fix that right away. But just as we begin, right? I just want you all to talk to us a little bit about how you all met and some unique things that exist in your relationship.
Yeah. Well, I'll probably need to address this. We both attended Hampton University in Hampton, Virginia. And I'll never forget how I met Barbara. I was down on the waterfront. Hampton has a beautiful waterfront right down there on the campus. And I was sitting on a bench, and had my eyes closed and taking in the gentle breeze. And this was like the first, what was like the initial days when you had to go back to college, and you were signing up, and parents were bringing their families and their daughters and sons there. And I happened to be sitting on the bench by myself. And when I opened my eyes, it was this young lady down on the waterfront looking real forlorn out there, man, and staring out into the distance. And my grandfather had always taught me that that when you are searching for significant others or looking for women, one of the things that you should do is not look for a person that's always in a group, because it may indicate that they cannot make decisions on their own. And so I saw this young and I went over and approached her, and I was planning to use my my little city rap. I'm from Washington, D.C. at that particular time, and when I got ready to make my statements, I said to her, "Can I talk with you?" And she disarmed me completely by saying, "Well, start talking." And I got to stuttering and everything, and from that moment, we just had a wonderful today. I also found out right then that she was directionally challenged, because her parents were going back up north, and she was looking toward the south, looking for Norfolk, Virginia.
And what he failed to mention is that I thought he was an arrogant little upstart, because as I looked out across the water, and he said, "Where are you looking at?" And I said, "I'm homesick. I'm looking at my area where my home is." And he said, "Your home is not that way. Your home is that way."
Yes, man. So that was the beginning of our connection together, and of course, it grew while we were there at Hampton University. Mm-hmm.
Got you. Can you talk to me about some uniqueness about your relationship? Like, what do you all think makes your relationship unique?
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the things that has helped us is that we are very honest. We are great communicators. It's not uncommon for us to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and just lie there and talk in bed. We talk about everything. We share dreams. We share ambitions. We share failures. We talk about kids and grandkids. We just talk about everything. So we are great communicators, and we're very honest in our communication, and we're great friends. I enjoy his friendship. I've always enjoyed Donaldson's friendship. That was one of the first things that I think helped to develop our relationship originally. We started out as friends, and we have remained friends. And I feel like as a friend, I can share with him anything. And I thank God for the fact that he is my friend, because I think friendships last longer than everything. So I'm thankful that, he has continued to be a good friend for me.
Yeah, I would just piggyback on that. I think that that friendship has been a cornerstone of our relationship. In other words, if we were not romantically involved or married or intimate partners, I think that Barbara would be the kind of person that I would want to be friends with. And that friendship, I think, has really been a great blessing for our relationship. And we've been able to build on that particular friendship and establish a number of what I would call kind of agreements or covenants that we have both agreed to, that have been the cornerstone of our friendship and have helped us in our married life as we've gone through a number of seasons together,
Okay, honest, great. So one thing that we've heard a lot of is people come on and talk about their friendship.
Sure.
And I had someone say to me one time, you can love your wife, but it's always easier if you also like them. And the idea that you can be friends is definitely awesome. Talk to us about some of the biggest blessings that you've seen in your marriage, or tell us about a time in your marriage that you think that you may not have made it through a difficult time had it not been for having each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say one of the awesome blessings is that we sort of covenanted together, and I think it was sort of unconscious at first, but over the years, we've kind of made it intentional. Well, what I mean by that is that our relationship has always been one based on truth, honesty, and respect. One of the things I really love about Barbara, and it's been a blessing in our relationship, is that we can say anything to each other. As long as we say it fairly respectfully, we are very honest with each other, and that bodes well because she's a direct person and I'm a direct person, and I don't like trying to decipher things through different coded messages. And so we have learned to speak very honestly with each other, and that has helped us because I remember when I decided to pursue the gospel ministry, pastoral ministry, full time, because when we first got married, that was not my professional field of endeavor. And I had never indicated to her that I was interested in going into the ministry. But I remember when I felt a calling and had to make a number of significant sacrifices from a promising profession to go into the gospel ministry. And part of that transitional time included a time where early in our marriage, I had to leave for at least 6 to 8 months before she was able to join me at Andrews University. I think at that time you had a teaching contract or something, and I had to leave, and it really, I think, put a real stress on both of us and a stress on our relationship. And when I think about that particular time, I think that the fact that we were able to talk to each other and were friends really helped us to get through that, particularly early in our marriage.
My take is somewhat different. When I think of some of the challenges, I think of when we first came into the ministry. You know, we've been in the ministry for over 30 some years. And that was back in the time when they moved you around, pretty often. And it was difficult moving from one state to another state, not having family, not having, close friends, having to develop friends in a new church and with young children. So that was very challenging for us. The blessings, I think, however, is that regardless of where the conference would move us, God would always make a way. He would always find people who we grew to love, who grew to love us. He always opened up doors for me to find employment. I never moved someplace and couldn't find a job. And so I just feel like those were times when Donaldson and I really leaned on each other a lot, because in a lot of instances, we were all each other had. And, you look at church as church family, but you have to develop that. And so that was a time when, we felt like God really, he helped bring us closer and closer together and helped us to work together so that we could, depend on each other and learn to even love each other more, because we knew that we were all each other had.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Listen, I want to ask you all one other question, right? And can you all give us some examples of how you handle conflict, work-life balance and stuff like that? So, a lot of couples right now are at home, they're quarantining together. And one thing that we see a lot of conflict. We see people trying to get divorced through, searching online how to get divorced through Zoom because they're stuck in the house with people they can't stand. And then Sister Brenda, I'm going to come and I'm going to ask you this, right? So we know that Dr. Donaldson scream a lot when he preaching, right? I want to know if any of that comes out in conflict too, because you need earplug. But no, talk to us about conflict and talk to us about how you would suggest to people to handle conflict and how they handle the balances in their marriages.
Well, one of the things I will say is that Donaldson is not a screamer. Honestly, I tend to be more of the screamer around the house. If I'm upset and I'm mad, I want to get heard. I'm going to be heard. But he's a talker, and so he's a problem solver. And so if there's a problem, he wants to know what it is. And it's like, okay, let's sit down and talk about it. Let's talk it out. And he will talk and talk and talk. And I want to scream and scream and scream. But I think key to conflict is you have to talk. You have to communicate. A lot of times people are frustrated because they don't always feel like they're being heard. I look at some of my girlfriends who are in marriages that sometimes are in trouble, and they'll say, I don't feel like I'm being heard. I think it's important for you when there are conflicts to know that you can be heard. Sometimes you do have to walk away. Sometimes you need time to think about it. You need time to process it. You need time to think about what is it that I really want to say, because you don't want to say something that you can't take back. You don't want to say something that's going to hurt so deeply that it defeats the purpose of trying to solve the problem in the first place. So I think talking is important, and that's what Donaldson and I can do. Sometimes we do have to take a break. We have to walk away and then come back and talk about what the problem really is. And one of the things that I love about him is that he's a listener. He will hear me when I talk. Sometimes I have to scream, but when I start getting out, he will hear me, and he's quick to try to solve whatever the problem is. Sometimes, he's busy. And there have been times when our children have been younger, and I've said, you got to find more time for the kids. I know you're busy. You need to find more time. And he's the kind of person who wants to solve problems. And if there is something that's pointed out to him, he works to try to correct it.
Yeah, I would say using problem solving skills, particularly that you learn in your job situation, is an excellent way to approach issues that you have in your personal situation. In other words, oftentimes conflicts receive additional fuel when people make it personal. And so I think one of the things that we've tried to do, it doesn't always work, but one of the things that we've tried to do is to remember that any issue that we're having conflict with is just that, an issue. It is not the person. So we try to keep away from making the issue become a personalized. Mm-hmm. And so you try to separate it. It's very difficult. I mean, and like as I said, we haven't always been perfect at it. But if you can look at an issue as if it is a problem that you would solve for your job, or something that you would use your techniques of problem solving to try to reach out and not personalize it and say that it is the person, then I think you can make a lot of headway. And that kind of points out another thing that I think has been unconsciously and now very consciously effective in our marriage over the years. But when we first started out, it was probably unconscious. And that is, we both covenanted and agreed that the things that are holding us together, the things that make us who we are together, will always be greater than anything that can separate us. Mm-hmm. And I know that that sounds a little bit kind of trite, but it has been an extremely blessing for us, because we know that whenever we have conflict or we have other issues, that we are coming from a foundation where this thing does not have the potential to divide us or separate our relationship. So that forces us to deal with it and to recognize that there will be some resolution at some point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that has been very helpful for us. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I wonder, and Sister Donaldson, I have to keep apologizing to you. See, this is bad because my mother's name is Barbara, and there's something internally in me that will not call my mother by her first name. So I keep messing up Barbara, but that's my mother's first name.
That's right. So I call her Brenda. You know?
Yeah, yeah. I'm sorry. So, Sister Barbara, I trust me. I know you, and I gotta apologize again, but I'm gonna get it, Sister Donaldson. I just can't get my mother's first name out my mouth. Anyway, so really quickly, has there been times, and I guess this is where we're gonna ask for a little transparency or some help for people. Have there been times that you all have maybe thought about wanting to give up, or when things were so challenging that you thought to yourself, well, what in the world did I get married for? What in the world am I in this relationship for? And then talk to someone who may be there right now, and offer them some practical advice as to how they can get through that.
You want to answer first? I can't think of a time when I've been so frustrated that I've wanted to give up. I mean, there have been times when I have had challenges. I'm a school administrator, and that has come with it a whole set of demands and anxieties that come. And there have been times when I've been frustrated. But I think the key is, being able to talk, being able to share. I can recall one time in school, I had an instance where a student brought a gun, and it was at a time when I was just very, very pressured with a lot of things that I had to do. And then the kid brings this gun to school, and that created another whole set of series. And and there were things going on in the church. I mean, there were just challenges all around. And the frustration that came with that period of time, I felt like I needed to get away. I wanted to go somewhere away from everything and everybody. But it wasn't because of the relationship. It was because of the challenges that came with just living my life, my career, my job, So there are times when that happens. And I think, when you feel like you need to get away, sometimes it's good, get away by yourself. It's okay. But I think having people that you can talk to, having close friends is helpful. Having good girlfriends has been good for me, because when things have gotten challenging and I felt like things were closing in on me, it was just good to have people, sometimes other than just my husband, to talk to. But there's never been a time in my relationship where I just felt like the relationship was so bad that I needed to go. And I think, again, it's because I've always had the ability to communicate, to talk, to share. If things are crazy, I share that. If I'm frustrated, I share that. If I'm angry, I share that. So I don't hold in. And the fact that I can do that, I think, has helped me.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, I can't think of a time when I felt that the relationship was of such that it needed to really be terminated, or we didn't want to be together. But there certainly have been a lot of times when Barbara was not my favorite person. And we have had that. Now, one of the things that helps us, I think, is the fact that we can talk very clear and plainly to each other, and without personalizing it. I don't know. I don't think it's anything special to us, but I think the fact that when she's angry, I don't have to guess, I will know. When I'm upset, she doesn't have to guess, she will know. And when we are not in agreement on something, we will know. And I think that is very, very clear. I'll tell you another thing, Dave, I just thought of that has been helpful for us is when we find places where we are divergent and we are not on the same page, we have learned, and this is something that I appreciate, is we have learned to put a specific time to deal with that. In other words, we don't just deal with conflict, disagreements, issues, things that are causing us to move in a different direction right on the spot of the situation happening. And so, for instance, if I'm upset and then she comes home from work, or when she used to come home from work, I don't pounce directly on her with something that I've been thinking about and she has had any opportunity to do it, and vice versa. We say, hey, listen, I've got an issue with you. And we talk about a time when we can sit down and discuss it. And that has been a great blessing to us, because I think that timing is everything when it comes to communicating, particularly when you're not on the same page.
I think also, Dr. Defoe, travel has been very therapeutic for us. We travel, and when we travel, we really enjoy ourselves. We have had some tremendous trips. You know, we just got back right before COVID. We just got back from Egypt, and we were there for a while. On our 35th wedding anniversary, we cruised all the islands of the Hawaii. I mean, we have had some wonderful trips, and when we go, we leave everything behind. We leave everything behind, and we make a determination that we will only call back one time during the week. So if people are trying to reach us, they're probably gonna have a hard time getting us. We will check, email periodically, but when we get away, it's time for us to renew our relationship, time for us to renew our romance, time for us to spend quality time holding hands and sitting on the beach and kissing and just spending time with each other without having to worry about any other distractions.
Sex too.
And it's always relaxing. You come back and you feel like a renewed person. You feel like you have a renewed relationship. And that has been good. And sometimes when we're stressed and frustrated, we feel like it's time to get away. We need to take a break. And that has been very helpful. Although I say to some of our friends, if you need counseling, get it. If you need therapy, get it. Don't try to pretend, and don't live in a land of denial. If you know that's what you need to help retool your relationship, get what you need to help strengthen that relationship.
Gotcha. Yeah, that is awesome. Spending quality time together away. Dr. Donaldson came back bragging about that Egypt trip, man. He was showing people pictures and nobody even asked him about nothing. So, that's good. So those are practical tips for some people. Well, what about those individuals? So say you're talking to someone who is contemplating marriage, or maybe they're dating in a serious relationship and they're contemplating taking it to the next level. What practical advice, or what advice would you all give them for people who are contemplating marriage?
I think, I remember when my daughter was dating and our son, because they're both, older people with children now. But when they were dating, we would say to them, is this somebody that you enjoy their company? Do you like being around that person? How does that person treat their family? Have you been in situations where you can see how the family interact with each other and how that person interacts with his family or her family? We tell them, look at this person and try to keep an open mind about how this person acts in all spheres, in all filters. Is this a person? How does he handle stress? How does she handle stress? What do they do when they are frustrated? Look at everything and look for flags. If you see flags that are flying, don't pretend you don't see them and walk away, and don't live in some land of denial where you're trying to pretend that this person is someone he or she is not. So we always told our kids to be honest with yourself. And if this is somebody who you're not liking the things that you see now, then you need to make sure that you walk away. Don't get involved in a relationship that you don't think is going to take you where you want to go. Be honest with what you see. And I think that has been helpful to them in some instances.
Yeah, I would say, if for somebody that was starting off, is take your time and make sure you are really getting to know the individual. And when I say know the individual, I mean know what is central and core to that person. I think that this is one of the reasons why marrying somebody who has a relationship with Christ is extremely important, because Christ in your relationship can help people from having and allowing pride and other things from keeping you from the kind of communication that you're going to have, because you're going to have conflict. Anytime you have two human beings from different backgrounds, environments, experience, etc., and you're trying to come together, there are going to be times when you're going to have conflict in your relationship. I would say to anybody that's contemplating marriage, don't necessarily be overly enthralled with what people say. Watch what they do, their actions consistent with their words, because people tend to do over time what you are observing there is what you're going to get later. But you want somebody whose words and actions are connected together like twin brothers.
And don't buy into the hype that they'll change after you marry. I think that's one of the biggest problems that people sometimes encounter. They think that somehow once they marry you, there's going to be this miraculous change into this person that they want this person to be. And that just does not happen. So you need to be very guarded about that attitude, because it just doesn't happen.
Another area I would suggest, Dr. Defoe, would be this, the area of finances. Assuming all of the other things are in place, you can communicate, you like this person, you're attracted to this person physically and intellectually, etc., and the person has demonstrated a relationship with Christ, I would look at finances, not so much the amount of money that a person may have, but to make sure that your philosophies regarding spending, etc., are similar and that you have some kind of agreed upon or shared governance practices, because one of the main things that I believe can really cripple a marriage is when you are constantly not on the same page when it comes to something significant like your finances. It affects your goals. It affects the things that you're going to accomplish together that help cement your relationship. And I think the other thing that it does is that, there's really no romance without finance, because when you're not on the same page with that, working together, etc., and don't have a similar philosophy about how you're going to use your resources, it affects other areas of your relationship. And a lot of your communication is going to be conflict in your communication is going to be issues over that. So I think it's a very important aspect.
And take the premarital counseling seriously. Don't go into premarital counseling with a bunch of preset answers. And listen carefully to what the other person is saying in the counseling sessions. Find a good premarital counselor and then listen carefully to what is being said. And don't go into premarital counseling already have planned your wedding. Pay attention to what comes out of those sessions and listen carefully and make sure that you're watching the flags, even in the premarital counseling. Is this somebody that I really truly feel like I can spend the rest of my life with? And that should be the goal of marriage. This is not somebody that I'm going to marry for 5 years and I'm moving on, but this is someone that I want to spend my life with. This will be my life partner. And look at it that way, so that you're looking at flags to make sure that those flags don't get ignored if you feel like this is not the person that I want to spend the rest of my life with.
So, Sister Donaldson, you've talked or you mentioned these flags a couple of times. Like, give the viewers sort of just an idea about what some of those flags just may be, in case they're wondering if the red flags in their relationship they're just ignoring.
Okay, I mean, I think Donaldson kind of touched on one. Like, if the finances is a big piece. If the person doesn't want to work, if he doesn't have a job, can't keep a job, or she doesn't want to work, can't keep a job, I think that's definitely a flag. If the person doesn't have a relationship with Christ, or their relationship with Christ is completely superficial, they only go to church on certain occasions, not I am an avid Christian who is involved with a relationship with Christ. If they don't have that relationship with Christ, I think that's important. If this is not a person you can talk to because they're angry and they got stuff going on, they just don't have time to talk, can I communicate with this person? Is this somebody who will listen to me? Is this somebody who, I feel like care about what I have to say? So is this someone that I can communicate with? How does this person handle anger, and how does he handle stress? If this is someone who handles stress, doesn't know how to deal with stress without getting, upset, and that's a problem, So you just need to is this somebody that I have something in common? Do we have shared values? Are there things that we enjoy doing together? Is this person take time to want to do things with me? I have to tell the story when Donaldson and I were dating, and he's an avid sports lover. He was when I was dating him in college. And I knew he was the right guy when I would say to him, let's go for a walk. And maybe the Redskins would be playing on a Sunday evening. And I would say, hey, let's go walk. And he would say, okay. And I knew he loved the Redskins, and I knew he would love those back. I said, you know what, this guy is okay. He will give up the football game to go walking with me. So, how important are you in that person's life? Are there flags that are showing you that he can choose you over sports or choose you over other things, and he doesn't allow those things to get in the way?
Mm-hmm. I would add to that kind of list there, David. One thing I would look for specifically is whether the potential person that I was going to marry is a person that knows how to delay gratification. And the reason I mention that is a lot of what you're going to find in marriage is a lot of give and take and a lot of sacrifice. It's sacrifice for the development of somebody else professionally, sacrifice for children, sacrifice for time together. You're going to spend a lot of time in your relationship practicing the art of sacrificing. And I would look for a person that demonstrates that they can delay personal gratification, because that's going to give you a good insight. They're a person that just has to have their way all of the time and has to be immediately gratified all of the time. Then I think it's going to affect you in the long haul,
Listen, this was an awesome and rich discussion. And for those that are watching, we're going to take questions. If you have questions for the Donaldsons, just go on and type them in the comment box, and we're going to throw some questions to you all after we take this break. But Sister Donaldson, giving up the Redskins is not hard. But me being a Pats fan, me being a Patriots fan, man, I'm giving up.
Back then, okay, back then. Winning, okay.
That's true. Okay, all right. So then we'll give him that, man. Well, that's all. That's great. I want to thank you all. I want to thank you all for that. Listen, if you're watching and you have questions, why don't you just put them in the question box, and we'll come back to take your questions right after this short commercial break.
The Relationship Ministries Department of the Allegheny East Conference is a family of ministries that seeks to engage, enrich, and empower families, men, singles, couples, and parents to have healthy and whole relationships. To access the many resources we have available to you, your church, or your family, visit us on the web at www.visitaec.org/relationshipmin.
All right. So we did have.
Dave, before you get started, man, your daughter, man, she needs to be on CNN or MSNBC, man. I tell you,
She has a good little voice.
Yeah.
As long as she stays out of our profession, that's all that matters to me, man. Just don't take the vow of poverty, man.
I agree, man. All right.
So here's one question that came in a little earlier. I'll put it up on the screen and then I'll read it to you. In celebrating, and you talked a little bit about it, in celebrating your relationship and one another, what are some of your marital traditions?
Oh, okay.
Well, one of the things that we do, and we have to really stay focused, is that Thursday night is a night for us. And we try not to let anything interfere with that. I mean, sometimes, things get crazy. But for the most part, over the years, we've celebrated on Thursday nights. And that's a date night. And we try to make that just preeminent. We don't want anything to interfere. And it can mean anything from going out to dinner to sitting and watching movies together, sitting and talking and just enjoying each other's time. It's a very special, almost like a sacred time for us. And we don't allow too many things to interfere with that. And that has been very helpful because it gives us time to connect. Even if we've had a crazy week and we haven't had time to connect all week long, we try to find time to connect on Thursday night, date night.
Awesome. All right. And just for our viewing audience, right? If there was one thing that you wanted people to leave this discussion with, like, what would you share with them? If you want them to leave something about their relationships, about dating, whatever, one thing, like, what would you all both share with them?
Won't you start?
Yeah, I think share with them is that base your relationship on truth, honesty, and respect, because that is the foundation, I believe, that will allow love to grow and to nurture. If loving this person is your goal, then focus on developing the practice of being truthful, having honesty and respect with each other. And as you do that, you will find that it will feed and nurture and give the nourishment that you need for love to grow. And then the other thing I would say is what I said earlier, is covenant right from the start that which you have will always be greater than any of the things that can come up that may potentially separate you or have the potential to separate you, as long as it's in the parameters of, again, the truth and the honesty and the respect for a person.
And find time for romance. You're never too old for romance. Donaldson and I have been married almost 45 years. He still likes romance, and so do I. And so find time for that. Make it a part of your relationship. Donaldson will give flowers. He still sends cards. Sometimes when I used to come home from work and I was exhausted, he'd have candles lit and he'd have bought dinner. And, romance is important and you need to find time for it, and don't ever take it for granted. And I think that, if you do that, you can keep the spice in your relationship. Find time to travel together if that's what you enjoy, or find time to spend quality time together. And that's one thing I've learned. I used to think that you need to spend a lot of time together all the time. And that's not true. You just need to spend quality time together sometimes, because Donaldson is still busy. I'm still busy. Even though I'm retired, I still have a life. I have a lot of things that I do. He's very, very busy. But we still try to find time to make quality time for each other. And we still try to find time for romance and good sex. I mean, that's all part of having a strong relationship. And you need to make sure that that is a part of what you covenant to do in your relationship as well.
All right. right. Well, I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming on, for having this discussion with us. I think that there are many people that were watching that got a good snapshot into your marriage and got some very good, strong, practical advice from both of you, Dr. Jean and Barbara Donaldson. No. Yes, and it's not like I don't. Yes, but I think that some people got some very good practical tools and tips from you all, and I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming on and for sharing with us. I just want to let you all know that we are continuing our Sunday conversations next week with Dr. Jacqueline and Pastor Pierre. They'll be our guest on Sunday Conversations next week at 11 on Sunday, and then also I want to let you all know that we are having this mental health discussion on Saturday, July 18th at 4:00 p.m. on the Relationship Ministries webpage. So I want to let you all know that so that you all can prepare for that. Dr. and Sister Donaldson, I want to thank you all for coming on. I want to thank those of you who have joined our broadcast. Have a wonderful and great and productive Sunday morning. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much for having us. So that wasn't that bad.